Okay, now I will be talking about why businesses should invest in Egypt from an economic standpoint. Economic history. Leaders of this country during ancient times were called pharaohs, and they acted as kings. The main economic focus was agriculture, and people would live and work on the land. Another major industry during ancient Egyptian times was manufacturing, and since many raw materials were easily accessible all over Egypt, the country had little need for large-scale trade. Ancient Egypt was also known for heavily taxing its people, which caused somewhat of a strain on the economy, but with this severe taxation has disappeared in the modern era. Modern-day Egypt. Firstly, Egypt's economy is a diverse and relatively stable economy with fertile farmland and rich oil reserves. With a GDP of $257.3 billion, Egypt is a frontrunner for investment opportunity in the Middle East. When compared to other Middle Eastern countries, Egypt's potential shines even more due to the lack of government regulations, natural resources, and overall attractiveness of its fellow Middle Eastern nations. Egypt has a total population of 80.72 million people, and with this mid-sized population, Egypt has plenty of room to grow. From this population, 27.2 million people make up the labor force, which is divided into three main areas of occupations, which are agriculture, industrial, and services. Next, Egypt also engages a number of countries through free trade agreements, which has helped to create strong relationships with powerful nations around the world. These agreements include World Trade Agreement, also known as WTO, COMESA, GAFTA, EU-Egypt Free Trade Agreement, Al-Gadir Free Trade Agreement, and the Egypt EFTA Agreement. These free trade agreements include relations with countries in the Middle East, Africa, North America, Asia, and Europe. Major trading partners include the USA, Italy, India, China, and Turkey. So investments in Egypt can go a long way with regards to a number of nations as well. These trade agreements lead to the importing and exporting of goods and services on a regular basis. Major exports include crude oil, petroleum products, cotton, textiles, metal, chemicals, and agricultural products. Imports include machinery, chemicals, lumber, and fuels. Therefore, it is clear that there is good investment opportunity to succeed in any of these industries. A number of successful companies already call Egypt home, such as Telecom Egypt, Commercial International Bank, also known as CIB, and Eastern Tobacco. Each of these companies have market values of above a staggering $750 million. And just by seeing the numbers, it's clear that there's real business potential for success in Egypt. Egypt also has a powerful banking system. The National Bank of Egypt, also known as NBE, has 338 branches all over the nation. It accounts for 23% of Egyptian banking system's total assets, 25% of total deposits in Egypt, and 25% of total loans and advances. The currency of Egypt is also among the highest in Africa and most of the Middle East, with one Canadian dollar valuing about 6 Egyptian pounds. Interest rates in Egypt are also rather high. The average from 1991 to 2014 is 11.57%, which means if a business makes deposit in the Bank of Egypt, the amount will increase at a much faster rate than if the banking services were used in Canada or the US. An element of the Egyptian economy that is sometimes forgotten is tourism. Tourism makes up a large portion of the Egyptian economy. About 12.8 million tourists visit Egypt every year, and this significant amount of tourism creates revenues for Egypt of about $11 billion. Not only does tourism create profit for this ancient country, but it also accounts for 12% of jobs in all of Egypt. It also accounts for 1% of all of tourism in the entire world. Major cities for tourism include Pyramids of Giza, the Sphinx, and many tombs and pyramids of other ancient Egyptian rulers. And finally, Egypt was accounted in the top 30 in the world for its economy, with an inflation rate of 8.5%.
Created using Powtoon.